Oh, so alright. The confusion is everybody knows that we come from America. Like most of our people get the fact that we're not black in these colors and these labels, and we from America. Now, where I'm gonna start with this is from the quote unquote government's perspective of what status the Indians are at when it comes to being Indian and being, you know, claiming Indian as a nation or whatever.
All right. So what did you look up to find this information?
So this is from the government publishing office called the Concurrent Resolutions, October 21, 1988, or you type in the House Congress Resolution 331, October 21st, 1988. Now, where I'm gonna read from, it's like the second little paragraph, and it starts: Iroquois Confederacy in the Indian Nations, recognizing contributions to the United States. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts of the Six Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. Whereas the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political systems developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, and where many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. And whereas since the formation of the United States, the Congress has recognized the sovereign status of Indian tribes. So they went from nations to tribes, if y'all didn't catch that. The status of Indian tribes, and has, through the exercise of powers, reserved the federal government in the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, dealt with the Indian tribes on a government-to-government basis, and has, through Treaty Clause, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, entered into 370 treaties with the Indian tribal nations. Whereas from the first treaty entered into with the Indian nation, the Treaty of the Delaware Indians of September 17, 1778, the Congress has assured the trust, responsibility, and obligations to Indian tribes and their members. I want to stop there. It's important that we like take into account these dates. I'm gonna go back over them. Whereas this trust responsibility calls for Congress to exercise the utmost good faith in dealing with the Indians. They put that in quotes. As provided for in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Now, the first date was September 17th, 1778. So the thing with that is they're saying the first treaty they entered into with any of these Indian tribal nations was in 1778. Why is that paramount? Because if we go very quickly to
now what book is that?
This is from, I got this from RV Bay Publications.
Can you show that to the people?
Okay, you see it? It's called Treaty of the Moroccan Flag, Peace and Friendship, the Constitution for the United States of North America. That's the first constitution that created the United States Constitution. So now, the first Continental Congress was held at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on day 5 of September in the year 1774. So that's 4 years before they did the first treaty of Indian tribal nations. I'm gonna keep reading. It was attended by men of varied motives, yet who were in general agreement to a unified body and abandoning, rejecting, and escaping the feudal law systems of Europe. Talking about the quote-unquote founding fathers. The consensus was that they were sincere in committing themselves to adopting and embracing the allodial orientation principles of the ancient ones, meaning the Moors.
Founding fathers, that's the four heads on the hill.
Mm-hmm. But what they call that hill? Or what they call that mountain?
I forgot.
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Because it's the rushing of the Moors from allodial, estate. So basically, when we deal with the starting of, I'm gonna get right to the actual treaty. This is the ordinance they were talking about too. The ordinance of 1787 was passed by the Congress of Confederation on day 13th of July. So they were still the Continental Congress at this time, which means it was still somewhat allodial or tied to the Moorish Empire. So I'm trying to get where they actually start the treaty at in this joint. All right, here we go. So the first time that they introduced this peace and treaty friendship, after they did after they basically stripped the nationality from everybody, instituted these Indian treaties under the United States. They were supposed to be by America, because the United States is their government. We had to rewrite or reinstate this constitution. This treaty. So here it goes. Morocco Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Treaty sealed by the Emperor of Morocco, June 28th, 1786, and deferred to the American agent at Morocco on June 28, 1786. Additional article signed and sealed on behalf of Morocco, June 15, 1786. Ship and signals agreement signed at Morocco, July 6, 1765. Entered into force July 15, 1786. Treaty in addition to article ratified and proclaimed by the President of the United States July 18, 1787. Expired and replaced on January 28, 1837 by the Treaty of September 16, 1836. So when they started their treaties with the Indians, they started breaking them. When they did the Moroccan treaty, they never broke that one. And that was the one that restored us to our actual identity. So let's go back to what they were doing here with these treaties with the Indian nations, so-called Indian nations. The Congress was assumed the trust, responsibility, and obligations to Indian tribes and their members. What? So the Congress, so now after these treaties were signed into, they're saying, whereas the first treaty entered into with the Indian nation, the Treaty of Delaware Indians of September 17, 1878, the Congress has assumed a trust responsibility and obligation to Indian tribes and their members. Whereas this trust responsibility calls for Congress to exercise the utmost good faith in dealings with Indians as provided for in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. That was the one we just dealt with. Whereas judicial systems of the United States has consistently recognized and reaffirmed this special relationship, now therefore be it resolved the House of Representatives, the Senate concurring, that the Congress, on occasion of 200th anniversary of the signing of the United States Constitution, acknowledges the contributions made by the Iroquois Confederation and other Indian nations to the formation and development of the United States. The Congress also hereby reaffirms this constitutionally recognized government-to-government relationship with Indian tribes, which has been the cornerstone of this nation's official Indian policy. The Congress specifically acknowledges reaffirms the trust, responsibility, and obligation of the United States government to Indian tribes, including Alaska Natives, for their preservation, protection, and enhancement, including this provision of health, education, social, and economic assistance programs as necessary, and including the duty to assist the tribes in performance of governmental responsibility to provide for the social and economic well-being of their members and to preserve tribal cultural identity and heritage. And the Congress also acknowledges the need to exercise the utmost good faith in upholding its treaties with the various tribes as tribes understood them to be. The duty of the great nation to uphold its legal moral obligations of the benefit of all its citizens, so that they and their prosperity may also continue to enjoy the rights they have enshrined in the United States Constitution for time immemorial. So that was saying a lot. Now watch how, see how they played this. Oh, we're gonna keep all the treaties. We're gonna honor the good faith, and we're gonna give them schools, and we're gonna give them education, and we're gonna give them economic programs. That's the dupe. They talk double language. These programs is basically to get you out of the languages or whatever. But I'm gonna get to something. 1830, Indian removal. So the Indian Removal Act was on 1830, signed by President Andrew Jackson on May 28th. The law authorized the president to negotiate with Southern Native American tribes for their removal to federal territory west of Mississippi River in exchange for their lands. The act was signed by Jackson, and it was enforced under his administration and that of Martin Van Buren. The act enjoyed strong support from the white people of the South, but there was a large amount of resistance from the Indian tribes, the Whig Party, and the Whigamore Party, and the whites of the Northeast, especially New England. The Cherokee worked together as an independent nation to stop this relocation. However, the Cherokee were unsuccessful in their attempt to keep their land and were eventually forcibly removed by the United States government in a march for the West that later became known as the Trail of Tears. So, after they broke all the treaties in 1830, what year did I say was the last establishment of the Moroccan Treaty? 1836. It's something that we got to really pay attention to with this. They're tricking up all the knowledge, because weren't slaves still, so quote unquote, wasn't slavery still going on when they did all of this Indian? So
I mean, you're a fool if you believe 500 years of slavery. That's all I'm saying.
But if there was slavery going on, how was it Indians at the same time?
So many lies on top of
so
lies.
Now you gotta watch what they do. What they're doing is they'll say that the Indians had black slaves. That's how blacks have Indian tribal stuff in their blood now. But they're going off a wrongful look at what slavery so-called is, and never was. So before I break that down, we have to deal with the term Indian. If you look up the term sin en Dios is where they got Indian from. But sin en Dios means God turned his back on you, or the people that God forgot about. That's what they were calling you, the Spanish. You're not Indian because Indian is from India, the people of India. Those are Indians. The actual indigenous name of the land is Hindustan, but if you take the H off, you get Hindustan, which goes to the Indus River, or Hindu Kush, or Indus Kush, which is the Indian people's river. And that's where they got they always name people after the lands, after the rivers and stuff like that, because the people would name the rivers, so they would just figure, okay, they name the rivers, let's call the people that, whatever. We call, the Moors in Africa called that river Niger, then the people came there and called the people Nigers. History, right? So, you can't be Indian because, okay, when in history did our ancestors call ourselves Indians? We could wait on that. Why do the Indians call their teacher Sagamores? We can wait on that. So what I'm seeing here is that the people who are calling themselves Indian tribes are really Germanic tribes, or basically Mongoloids and white people. They made this constructed history up of this whole, treaty signing with the tribal leaders and all this, to put themselves in history so they can claim land, so their children can claim land at a time. Because right now, most of the Indian tribal leaders are like they're like European descendants. They have European descendancy. So it's like, what's going on? How come there's no chiefs of indigeneity that are melanated? Okay, we'll chalk that up to some weirdness. Okay, so all around the world, you're known as Moor because that's your global identification. But you're not known as Indian anywhere outside of your own imagination because even the government is saying that, oh, you got that because you were slaves. Which is all playing off to a story of his own telling. There was never any Indian tribes or any that actually had any real legitimacy in history. Indian tribes is just like Hebrew tribe. I mean, like saying you're a Jew or whatever. Like that's a bastardization of the people of Judah, which comes from the biblical stories of Canaan. Like, you know, it's not literally what happened because they're really just talking about cosmological orders. So how were you the people of the Canaanites and the Israelites when Israelite is talking about Sirius and the stars going back to Sirius because they all came from Sirius? It's all light. Israelite. Isis, Ra, and El. Israelite. El is the Canaanite god. Ra is the sun. Isis is the mother deity. Or Sirius. So when you understand the lights, it kind of, all the stories kind of play into the same teaching. And when you're looking at it literal, that now we go back to that Western philosophy. I'm gonna even go deeper to say that Indians are really a Masonic order. You can do your research on that. Just type in Indian Lodge and Navajo tribes. These were Masonic orders of European descent, Scottish Rite. The Masonic orders that we have coming from Egypt, or what they would call Egypt, but true Egypt is here. That everything that's over there is really just a recreation of what was over here. You can find out that they kind of reconstructed all the monuments in the 1800s so people could go touring to them. The elites did that. They paid for all the places around the world to be rebuilt so people could look at it like it's something that just happened when Egypt was really over here. The Nile River is Mississippi, and it was all pyramids up and down that. You can go look at Colorado and the tombs and the pharaohs, stuff that they left. Watch the movie National Treasure, where they go into, they really break down, where under Philadelphia, there's Egypt and all Egypt's foundings. They say treasure, but treasure is really the melanin that we have that they're still trying to create a science to adapt to. They're like, so when we really deal with the understanding of what has been going on here, we've been lied to over and over. The same people that's telling you you are an Indian is the same people that's telling you he went to the moon. Is that same person telling you you're more? Wasn't Noble Drew Ali Cherokee?
Yep.
So this Cherokee comes and tells you, look, you Moors, you're not Negroes, blacks, or coloreds, right? So he's the first person that told us we're not Negroes, blacks, and coloreds. But this is the kicker. He's the first person that said that, along with that you come from here, that your home is this land, and it's the Moorish Empire in America. So now go back and all the people who came to wake us up, all the Ben Israels, all the tribal leaders, the chiefs. When did they say, like, which one of us after our falling and being under the control of the European? When did any of these leaders come and tell us that we're not black and that we're indigenous to America? Did they ever talk about Noble Drew Ali?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Sure
So they don't say Moors on the TV. We never hear Moors. They say Muslim. They say Muslim. They might even slip up and say Sufi. They never say Moors. Why is that? Do they say Indians?
Yeah.
Okay. So why is this?
It's like, you're totally blackballed.
Oh, right. And so I'm starting to see that our people are even falling into the illusion of Hollywood's perception manipulator to lies to the vision.
And you know what? I was going to piggyback
and
off
they are
that.
thinking,
Like,
look, we ain't this, we're that.
But it's all these celebs out here talking about, oh yeah, I'm Cherokee, oh yeah, I'm Navajo. Like, why are they doing that?
Because the Cherokees, the people who was under that is under the same impression. All of that comes from our grandparents. because our grandparents
Right,
knew
right.
they weren't from Africa, but that's about it. So when it comes to Cherokee and all that, I'm trying to tell y'all, like, okay, who's Sequoia? It's gonna be crickets. That's how the room be when I start this. Sequoia is the first translator of the Cherokee syllabary. Did I stutter? Sequoia created the language of Cherokee. Like, he created this language. And guess what language he spoke? If he created the language of Cherokee, how can he speak Cherokee? He created a language to speak with who with? The European. So the Europeans know how to speak Navajo, these 5 civilized tribes. I didn't even get into that because I don't want to really. I know people believe and stuff, so I don't want to headshot it because I can, but I don't want to. I want to ease it along. So like, so you deal with like Sequoia. He creates this language so our people can do commerce with their people because we didn't have a language that vent with theirs. But Sequoia spoke Hebrew, Latin, Arabic, and yeah, I think that was it. French or something like that. Sequoia or YA. I mean, I think if you type in that, you'll find him. And what is he wearing when you type him in? He got a pipe and he got a turban on. It ain't no feathers. I'm just saying, like, where do y'all think? So y'all never noticed that Indians, the Algonquin Indians, when you go all the way back, they had big rat fezzes. Nobody's looking at that. Are we not going to deal with the fact that a teepee is a fez? Are we not going to deal? And that's the home, that's the temple, and you think about it. You go in there to live. You put that on your head when you go out of the living. That's science. That's the science. What comes through the top of the teepee? Everything. Air. Life comes into the teepee when the woman gives birth. She has to stay in a certain teepee. So she wears a certain fez during that time. Do you know that? No. But you're Indian. See, how about this? What is the white wolf? What is that? What is the white wolf? The white wolf is the moonlit Anubis. It's the white Anubis, but not white when you deal with colors. We're talking about energy. White in the energy realm deals with light or purity. Dark Anubis leads you through the dark realm, but the white Anubis leads you through the light realm. One is female, one is masculine. The white wolf is masculine. The Anubis, or the Sirius dog star, is the bitch. So, how do we have Anubis, which is also, what's it? Oh, what I'm trying to think. The Sumerian text. I think they made him Marduk, which basically he's the light. They make it when they say it's evil. They're just talking about stuff that they don't talk about often. The hidden is the darkness. So Osiris is the first. Osiris is Anubis, the guardian of the underworld, the dark realm, which is the spiritual realm. So that's why it's the feminine aspect of Anubis. They always say the masculine. So that white wolf cosmology ties right back into what they would call Egyptian, which is really American. So if you see how this works, oh, am I in the right place?
Yeah.
Those behind them are what you see that and it would say, oh, they Israelites.
Take it to the right a little bit. Yeah.
Those are
to the left a little bit. My bad. Come up some. Yeah.
These are Moors, but they're Moors of the east. And two sitting in front wearing a fez, but everybody in back is wearing turbans and turbans wrapped around like they got the shemek. But basically, what was this? Turkish? Oh yeah. So this exploration is all in the falling when they, you know, everything was over. Like, this is like yesterday, like in the 1800s, where, like I told you, they went to all these nations and dug up ancient stuff with the people who knew they was there. They paid the people heftily, and they would lead them to stuff like this. They would lead the European to that. And the European would dig up everything, and what he found down there was more darkness. So he was on a whole like mission to whitewash everything. This is not hidden history. We know this is like, there's nothing secret about this. We already know about this. And look at these people. Look at these. You have, that's the fallout of what Project Paperclip was. After we went to war with so-called Germany, which is all wars are staged, we went to this war where we so-called for Hitler, and somehow after this war, people of European descent claimed a land in mandatory Palestine, and they renamed it to Israel in 1947 or 1940, around 1945, between 1945 and 1947. So when it comes to Israel, how are you ancient Israel if Israel was created in 1947 off of a war and people trying to make the Bible real? People already lived in that land, but they redid the Bible story to the people in the land on some real time. Like, we seen something in the clouds and they Constantined it. Let's talk about how before all of these systems of belief, you got the Alumbrados in Spain. Those were people who were escaping the Spanish Inquisition and going into mysticism and teaching that religions aren't held and bound by a man in between you and a God. You're not supposed to have to go to somebody and confess anything or tell them or pray in front of people to show that you're, you know, on your deen, or that you're I'm in church today, so I'm holy, I'm saved, like I'm blessed. This is all a show. It's all a big show that everybody's doing, a dress up. That's what I'm really seeing with this Indian versus everybody stuff, and the Moors versus everybody stuff, and the everybody versus everybody stuff. We all united. All of this stuff has a history to it. But when you bang on one thing and bang on the other one and say, I'm not this, but I am this, what you're doing is you're letting the white guy divide and conquer. Division came out in 1951. There was no science of dividing before then. Rothschild did a good job. You're talking about the Board of Education and the philosophies of the Board of Education. Well, we will not raise up men of learning, of art, and science. We have ample amount. This is a paraphrase, by the way. But you know, like schools were not made to teach us how to be indigenous. Schools were not made to teach us how to be sovereign. So, guess what? You can find Indian history in school, though. Guess what you can't find in school? The Treaty of the Peace and Friendship that America got created off of. No, the United States got created off of. But when you read their texts, what I just wrote to y'all, they're claiming that, oh, that we was fighting the Britain and the Indians gave us sovereignty. Y'all are denying the claim to the Moors because they know they can't be Moors. Only in secret can they be Moors. Shriners, Masons, with fezzes on, just marked up with a name of your ancestor on it. My sister's name is on one of them fezzes. That's real. And it's funny because her last name ties into something that you could tie your ship to. Which all goes back to moor. Like you moor the ship to the dock. So it's just, our name is an action. Our name also means land in Europe. Land is uncultivated because when the Moors left the land, they got murky and turned into mud like huts. And you got to know the history.
Why do
corn?
Moors
We gonna deal with corn.
Yeah. Why do Moors call this land as Morocco?
Moors, all right, we gonna deal with that because you gotta realize that Morocco is coming off of an occupation name. That's an occupation, a name of an occupied territory.
People are saying Morocco is across the seas and it was never here.
I'm gonna get it. But the French were also in America, right? But while the French were in America doing their setups, I'm talking about back in when the so-called Indians were in America. The French were over here doing trade with furs and stuff, but they were also in Africa trying to buy lands and claim lands and stuff.
Around what time frame?
Like the 1600s. So like, the French named that territory Morocco because they were there before the Muslims like really took hold when they created the United States. I mean the United Arab Emirate, and they got control. They turned Morocco into a kingdom and state in 1956. But before that, Morocco was known as Mauritania, and the Arabs called it the Maghreb. But there's a little secret about somewhere called Al-Maghrib Al-Aqsa. Oh, let me deal with that. Before they called it the Maghrib though, you had Berbers there, and the Berbers were the Tamazight people, and they called the land Amazi, right? So, and then when I'm going through this, I don't want people to be like, oh, he not getting to the point. I want to break it down in many different aspects so people who are looking for certain stuff that they were looking for and they didn't get a chance to get, I'm breaking that down. I'm like thinking when I didn't get it, and then I'm answering other questions. So another thing that you can look at is the Inca Empire, and how the Inca Empire goes right into Charles V, who happened to be the emperor of the Habsburgs, the emperor of Borgia at one time, the emperor of the Spanish Empire. Okay, Spanish Empire. So what we have now is that we see that bloodline ties to America with these Spanish people. You can look in the Inca Kings list and find this. It's not a secret. I'm talking about when they had Yeshua as a faceless being, but he was dark, and he has a big giant red cross, and he's holding it, and his face is blurred out, but he has long, like flowing hair, and he's copper colored, and it's showing all the Yangas. It's showing the queen Mama Huaco, and it's showing Al Yanga, the first Al Yanga, the creator of the Inca Empire, and then it shows their whole family line of like almost, I would say like 20 different kings. And then when it gets to like the 21st, his name is Carlos Quintos. Uno, dos, tres, cuantos, cinco quintos. 5, Charles V. Carlos, Charles. And you also have a Felipe Treses, like Philip III. Like all of these, most of these European monarchs started off in the Inca Empire through bloodline. So that's how they got, some grants to certain lands. King Charles II initiated the charter for William Penn to come and do the treaty with Tanneman that they was talking about in Delaware, or the Delaware area. But anyway, when you see that tie is there, that's something that you just have to really look at. Like they tie, our nation ties right to their empire, the Inca Empire, the Spanish Empire. So when you look at the paramount point is the biggest war and the most expensive war that ever took place in the world. When you watch movies, you see that they put the story in there that they don't teach you in school. The biggest war that ever happened in history, the most expensive war, was the Moors versus the Christians. They still celebrate this.
The Roman Empire.
The Holy Roman Empire versus the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
The Murmurs Parade.
Yeah, the Murmurs Parade. Mum's the word, because mum means to shut your mouth, keep quiet, mum it down.
Mum's the word, Johannes.
So where they make that right at? What street? What street they turn on? 6 and more. I had to see it for myself after I heard it from Taj. They definitely made that. They banged that turn on 6 and more, which represents our heritage. 6 more, but when you deal with 1492. If you watch the movie Assassin's Creed, they talking about that joint heavy. That's all about the Moors losing the fight. But anyway, we had control of Spain for 700 years, and what that meant is that we had control of the world. Spain was the center of the world at that time. It wasn't Egypt. It was Spain. Because this is where all the trade commenced and all the nations kind of met together. And that's where we furnished, because we showed Europe all of the sciences that all our people knew from around the world at Spain. That's where it commenced. We took them out of the Dark Ages. We gave them baths, and to show us our children that were white people, to show us their butt to kiss. After that, you got history of people like Henry VIII, who has a history of being one of the dirtiest kings to ever live. When we gave them baths and gave them a way, it showed them how to bathe themselves. Y'all basically honored God by becoming some of the dirtiest people that ever lived. You do the history and study the meeting of the Spanish and the diseases that they brought with them. The diseases of the German and the Germanic tribes. These were sick people that came from a sick nation after the Britons left, because the Britons were their family, their forefathers. But he who does not give and bear witness to his forefather will be doomed to repeat history over and over and over and over and over again. That's why he has control of his story, because he's really going through the loop-de-loop of reality, which is you got control of this joint, but in a weird way. I mean, a false sense way, a way that's really like not real. It's falsehood, because it's not the jour. But what we deal with is he's the only nation that doesn't want to admit that he came from the Moors. Every other nation is admitting that, but him and his, I guess, his pride is keeping him from admitting this. Chinese have admit, Japanese have admit, and it's not even like admit. It's just they're bearing witness to their forefathers. This is the science. I mean, that's the science of how you live long on this earth. Who got the shortest lifespan on this earth? Science will show you this. Who lives longest on this earth? Whose skin stays youngest on this earth? But he who, you know, so you see the punishments. We're not going to go through it because of, you know, the hate. I mean, why hate? We people are love. We got to learn how to not hate. So with the lies that we can dispel to get truth, so our people can learn to love, is that the Spanish Empire was at one time the Moorish Empire, and when we lost control of Spain, we lost control of all the empire. Go online and look up Spanish Empire, and look up all the lit up territories of the earth. You'll have, like, under the Mason-Dixon line of America, like all the south all the way down to South America, and all of South America. You have Australia, you have India, you have portions of the back regions of Asia, which would connect you right to the back regions of California. I want to say Khalifa, but Hong Kong and California have a synonymous relationship. Bruce Lee showed us that, because he came out with his karate. I can't remember what it's called. He created his own
Chinese boxer.
Yeah,
was it Chinese boxer.
But he had a name for it, like Tame Kong Say Something Doe or something. I should say something doe. But anyway, Bruce Lee had a jacket when he would be on his tour, his fighting team jacket, and on his jacket you had the flags crossed of Hong Kong and America. Go look up the Hong Kong flag and then look up the Moorish flag and tell me something. So, like, this is just so you can see some of the relation that we have. I want like my Moors to really pay attention to this, because y'all the ones that gotta teach the people and dispel this ignorance at times. And I know, like, when we first come into this knowledge, we don't realize, oh, Jeet Kune Do. So we don't realize that a lot of this stuff that we're in is our fault because we fell off the ball. And then we don't want to basically get over our past so we can get on to the future. Moore sold out the race. Okay, watch this. If I'm telling you you're black and a white man is telling you in his dictionary, black means more. At a time, black and more were synonymous and more dark-skinned people and all that, right? When you say Moore sold out the race, you're saying black sold out blacks. And we're not a race. We're a people. We're human beings. I'm not on the race to be anywhere.
They shoot you when you say you're black.
You saw it? The similarities there are striking. So, why does Hong Kong's flag resemble the Moorish American flag? We talking about hidden histories. Like, you remember that show on Nickelodeon, Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Oh, that was my joint. I used to love that show.
We missed that. They was doing all the animals that they were indigenous to America, and the goddamn stone that talks to them is the Olmec with big ass lips, a big nose. His name was Olmec, and we dumb as hell, all Nickelodeoned out. You see the way the Masonic orders,
So we wouldn't know.
the Masonic orders, but see how they play.
Yeah,
What they're doing is they're guarding the shrine, or they are playing trustee to the estate at this point, and they cannot give us back the estate until we show that we're competent to receive it. And at time we have not shown a shit to anybody. All we shown that we are able to attack each other. We are able to destroy worse than him at times, and we're not astute to our own ancestors' achievements.
The essence is ruined. We've ruined in the essence, basically.
Right. Well, because the essence is to be ruined.
And that's
because all essence is to be recreated.
Huh? Describe what a ward is. You're incompetent.
Yeah. Yes. Ward of the state.
Yeah.
And then now watch this. You're a ward of the state, but in this state, you're a stateless being. What is a stateless person? What does this mean? You're stateless. But not having a team, bro. It's like stateless is being like you don't have a team or an organization or a state, or you don't have a corporation or a dead entity to represent you with other dead individuals. You're trying to be living with dead. Think about that. It's corporations. It's all corporations. So why do you even think you belong in a venue with dead individuals if you're living? Your writ's supposed to go in there before you even go through the door. And you go through there specially, because guess what? The only way a living person can speak to the dead is in a special way. Some special seance. That's what you're doing. You have to invoke the special vocation that your body is there, but you're not your body. Your body is the house of the real essence of what you are. And that's what they're trying to say they got control of. Oh hell no. Oh no. You gotta deny them that claim. And our people don't do it. Our people go get lawyers. But if you look up a lawyer or liar, a lawyer is an esquire to the crown. Meaning he worked for Britain. He's an agent for Britain. And in order for you to represent yourself in proper persona or full standing in law, you can't have a attorney representing your words, because they assume that you're dead if you can't speak for yourself. The living can speak for themselves. The dead need an individual to speak for them. So we have not created our Frankenstein to go in there with. We just go in there with ourselves. Like I understand, because like we had a time, like we had desperation, but there's a lot of misunderstanding that come from stuff like this. Like I'm watching shows, and in the shows they putting in all this stuff that people is going right over people's head. I was watching I think it was Law and Order the other day, and they was talking about this Chinese guy had blew up a bomb, and he was like the nephew of a prime minister that was like the governor in Chinatown, some crap like that. So anyway, they brought these dudes to court. Guess what happened? Court adjourned. They had to go to the consular court because the United States didn't have jurisdiction over them because they from Tokyo or whatever. Let's just say
the
Tokyo.
only one that knows some shit.
Now watch this. Why is that paramount for us to know and understand with critical thinking who we are and who we not? Because it's a lot of our people that are saying we need to restore the consular court. But if you do the study in science, the study of the science, just look at this show's example. A consular court is for somebody who's foreign to this nation. Yeah, foreign to the government too, but you also foreign to the nation, which means you have a consulate here in a real, your real government body at home where your government is. But it's talking about off land now. So what we saying is like, all right, I understand the notion of consular court, and if you look up Article 3 says councils and all that, but it's saying supreme law of the land will be vested in treaties and the laws of the United States under the Constitution. So if that's supreme law of the land, a treaty and a Constitution, or the treaty and the Constitution, treaty being the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and the United States Constitution, if that's law of the land, then how would you say that the consular court would be law of the land? It's for like when you go back and look up consular courts, or you look up the what's that? Title 22, Section 22. No, Section 2. Wait, 22, Chapter 2, Section 141 and Section 142, I think. It was redacted or taken out, but if you go to the website and look at the notes, they'll show you what it said. And it was talking about we had consular courts here that dealt with Persia, Siam, Egypt, Morocco, and a couple other places. But it was talking about like foreign people coming over here. When they took the consular court out, they America. Now watch this. United States had jurisdiction in Morocco at that time, but when they put Morocco in the kingdom, or the state of Morocco in the kingdom over there in 1956, the jurisdiction left. They lost jurisdiction of so-called Morocco, United States. So why would you want to bring the consular courts and restore them so United States could have jurisdiction over the courts? I don't get it. I just don't get that. The whole thing is to recount our jurisdiction. If we bring a court here where they have jurisdiction over, you're actually going into a venue where they have full jurisdiction. So it'll be worse than playing that game that we play in their venues today. Guess what'll happen if you lose a case in the consular court? They will send you to Morocco, the kingdom. And now you all the way over there. Man, I'm just trying to tell y'all how this European work. And that's why I really don't get the people who saying this. Like, it's like these are like astute Moors, and I don't get. Man, you know what's crazy? I just don't want to. I don't want to see it for what it is. I guess that's the Christian in me that still exists. I don't want to see that the people that I kind of came up to some of this knowledge in is going rogue. I don't even want to say it because it's not to be said. So I won't further with that. I yield the floor on that subject. So I guess to wrap everything up, because it's getting late and it's getting lengthy. I want to look at who is who and what is what. As far as we know, corporations and European so-called government have been bought out by corporations, so that's who really is playing government. Corporations doing business as U.S. government. Cool, we got this. So we know who they are. What we have to realize is that in our community or of this awakening, and in our Moorish communities and indigenous American communities of what I want to say, Aboriginal nations, I could say, the Haudenosaunee, the Washita, the Powhatans, you know, those nations, the Hebrews, the people, the Kemet. What we have to do is start looking at, if people are talking about material gain, that ties into Europeans. We are still at a point where we have to heal and do our spiritual journeys and be on a spiritual aspect. So it's spiritual versus material. So people talking about how much money you can get and how much land we can get, that's all. You might as well just chalk that up as to being that's white supremacy stuff. Those are military. Those are military. United States military COINTELPRO aims. Stay away from that right now. We need to deal with unifying through spirituality, because we all can unite with spirituality. Let's deal with it.